Ever walk into a room and just like feel the energy? Like something's a little dot off.
Hmm.
Like you can sense the unspoken stuff going on, the dynamics, just from those subtle cues.
Oh, absolutely. You pick up on those vibes right away.
Turns out there's a whole field dedicated to understanding that feeling, to decoding those hidden patterns of human behavior. Behavioral science.
It's fascinating stuff.
And today, we're diving deep into what a career in this field actually looks like, what it actually entails. And we got some really insightful resources from RoleCatcher for this one.
Oh, yeah. RoleCatcher, they're great. They've got that career guidance platform, right?
Exactly. And they have this whole guide on becoming a behavioral scientist. It's like a roadmap. So if you're interested in a career where you're basically like a decoder of human behavior,
Like you're speaking my language.
let's break it down using these insights we've got.
Let's do it. You know, a lot of people, I think, when they hear behavioral science, they imagine someone just watching people, like some kind of super-powered people watcher.
Yeah, like taking notes in a cafe or something.
Exactly. But it's so much deeper than that. It's about getting to the why behind the what. Why do people make the choices they make? What are those invisible drivers of our behaviors, both as individuals and as a whole society?
It's like having X-ray vision into the human experience.
I like that. X-ray vision, that's a great way to put it. And it's not just about observing, it's about applying those insights to real-world situations. Organizations, even government institutions, are looking for this kind of expertise.
So we're talking about making a tangible impact, not just theories in textbooks. I'm always curious about those practical applications.
Absolutely. Tangible impact. Imagine a company that's struggling to keep their employees high turnover. You knew the deal. A behavioral scientist, they can come in, analyze the workplace, the dynamics, maybe do some employee surveys even, and with those insights, design ways to make things better.
So based on things like motivation, job satisfaction, all that good stuff.
Exactly. They're not just studying behavior, they're actively working to influence it. In a positive way, hopefully.
Right, ethically, of course.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of responsibility there, but it seems like the potential applications are huge.
Oh, they're massive. Healthcare, marketing, education, even criminal justice, you name it. It's really quite diverse.
It's like a superpower that you can use to improve so many different things in the world. No pressure or anything.
Right. No pressure at all.
But with that much potential, there've got to be some challenges too, right?
Right.
Every career path has its ups and downs. What are some things that someone who is considering this field should be aware of?
Well, one thing that I think surprises people is the amount of education and training involved. It's not just about being observant or, good with people. You need a solid foundation in research methods, statistics, all of that.
So you're saying this is not just a quick detour, it's a serious commitment.
100%. Usually a master's degree is the minimum, and a lot of folks go on to get their doctorates, especially if research is their passion.
That makes sense, especially in a field that's getting more and more recognition.
Absolutely. And with that recognition comes competition for those, coveted positions.
Right, because if it's a growing field.
Exactly. More people are vying for those spots.
But for those who are truly passionate about it, it seems like the rewards would outweigh the challenges.
I think so, for sure. One of the biggest rewards is the potential to truly make a difference in the world. Helping to improve healthcare, designing better educational programs, even just helping people communicate better with each other.
Yeah, fostering understanding. That's huge.
It really is. The work of a behavioral scientist, it can ripple out far beyond a lab or research setting.
Like you're not just building a career, you're contributing to something much bigger than yourself. And that actually brings us to something I find really intriguing about this field, the career path itself. It's not always linear, is it? It seems like there's so many different directions you can go.
You hit the nail on the head. It's not always a straight line. And that's what I think makes it so exciting. It's a field that embraces curiosity, encourages you to explore different avenues.
So you could start out doing research, maybe in social psychology or cognitive science, and then end up consulting for businesses or working with government agencies.
Precisely.
So it's a career that can kind of grow and change with your interests. Tell me more about that journey. What are some of those typical stages of a behavioral science career based on what we're seeing from RoleCatcher?
Okay, so you're totally on board, right? You're ready to jump into this whole behavioral science world, start decoding those fascinating patterns, maybe even nudge the world in a more positive direction. Where do you even begin?
Well, you got to start with a solid foundation, right?
Yeah.
And I don't just mean comfy shoes for all that, people watching.
Although comfy shoes are never a bad idea.
True, true. But I'm talking about education, the brain power behind the observation.
Right, got to have that knowledge base. So what does that look like in this field? Is it all like psychology degrees and lab coats? It can be, definitely. But it's not limited to that, which is pretty cool. This field, it draws from so many different places. Psychology is a great start, obviously, but you could come from sociology, anthropology, even economics, or neuroscience.
So it's about seeing human behavior from all these different angles, like different lenses on the same, fascinating subject.
You got it. Each discipline, it brings its own perspective, its own tools and methods to the table. And within those broader fields, you can get even more specific, find areas that really light your fire.
Okay, now you've got me really interested. Hit me with some examples. What are some of those specialized areas that might appeal to someone who's thinking about, really diving into behavioral science?
Okay, let's say you're fascinated by how people act in groups, how those social dynamics, they influence our decisions, our behaviors. That's social psychology.
Ooh, that's a good one. I've always wondered why some groups just click and others, well, not so much. What else?
Then there's cognitive science, which is all about the mind's inner workings. Memory, perception, language, problem solving, all those mental processes that shape how we experience the world.
So understanding not just what people do, but how they think. That's deep.
Exactly. And we can't forget neuroscience, which explores the brain's role in behavior.
Yeah, the brain stuff always kind of blows my mind.
Right. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, they all come from this complex network of neurons firing away in our heads. Neuroscience helps us connect those dots, understand the biology behind human behavior.
So we've got the social, the cognitive, the biological angles covered. But there's that one crucial element you mentioned earlier that ties it all together. Research.
Absolutely. Research, it's the backbone, It's how we go from just speculating about things to having real evidence-based insights.
Because it's not enough to just have a hunch about why people do what they do, right? You got to have a way to test it, to look at the data, and actually draw some meaningful conclusions.
Exactly. You've got to know how to design experiments, collect data, make sense of all those numbers, and then communicate your findings in a way that's clear and compelling. Those research skills, they're what allow you to actually contribute to the field, to add to our understanding of human behavior.
It's like being a detective, but for human behavior. Piecing together clues, following the evidence wherever it leads.
I like that.
Speaking of following leads, let's talk about how someone can actually get that hands-on experience in behavioral science. Because, it's not all just theory, right? It's about what you can do with that knowledge.
You're absolutely right. It's about application.
So what does that look like in this field? Is it all lab coats and research studies?
Well, research experience is definitely valuable. There's no doubt about that, especially if you're thinking about a career in academia or a more research-heavy setting.
Right, like maybe a research assistant position, getting some experience with data collection and all of that.
Exactly. But even if you're not sure about research, there are so many ways to get practical experience. You could volunteer at a community center, shadow a therapist or a social worker, even just start paying closer attention to the dynamics you see playing out in your everyday life. It's all behavioral observation in a way.
Oh, I like that, turning everyday life into a learning opportunity.
Right. It's all around us. And if you want something a bit more structured, think about designing your own little research project.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Tell me more.
Let's say you're curious about social conformity, right? You could create a survey to see how people's opinions are swayed by what others think, send it out to people you know, analyze the results. Boom, you've got yourself a hands-on behavioral science project.
It's like the DIY approach to understanding human behavior.
I love it. And those experiences, even on a small scale, they can really help you build your skills and show that you're serious about this field.
It shows you're passionate, you're curious. So we've covered education, research skills, hands-on experience. It's all starting to come together. But I have a feeling there's more to it, right? Like, what's it really like to work in this field?
You're right, there's always more to the story. There are some important ethical things to think about when you're studying and influencing how people act. And technology, it's changing the game in a big way. That's actually something I can speak to.
Perfect. Because that's where you, my friend, bring your expertise to this conversation. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the bigger picture. Why all of this matters.
All right, so we've talked about the what and the how of behavioral science. Now for the big question. So what? Why does all this even matter?
I think sometimes people hear behavioral science and they're like, okay, that's kind of interesting, but how does it actually play out in the real world?
can seem a little abstract, right? Like, are we just imagining scientists in lab coats watching rats run through mazes?
Yeah, we've all seen that image.
Classic for a reason, I guess. Right. But the reality is, it's all around us. Behavioral science, it's in everything. The way we talk to each other, the way we make decisions, even the little ones.
It's like those invisible forces that shape our world. And once you start to see them, you can't unsee them.
Exactly. And the more we understand those forces, the better equipped we are to deal with, some of the big problems we're facing. Like take climate change, for example.
Oh yeah, good example. Talk about a massive, complex issue.
Absolutely. But when you break it down, it's driven by us, by human behavior. Our reliance on fossil fuels, all that consumption, even just our attitudes about environmental policies. It's all rooted in our behavioral patterns.
So if we really want to create a future that's sustainable, we have to understand the behaviors that are honestly contributing to the problem in the first place.
Right, and then figure out how to shift those behaviors, how to make things more positive.
Okay, so how do we do that?
That's where behavioral science comes in. It gives us the tools, the actual insights to design things, interventions that can kind of nudge people in a better direction.
Nudge is an interesting word choice. What do you mean by that?
So it's not about lecturing people about climate change, right? It's about understanding why they do, what their motivations are, what's holding them back, and then creating environments or incentives that make it easier for them to make different choices.
Okay, so like making it more convenient to recycle or something.
Exactly. Encouraging people to conserve energy, maybe promoting plant-based diets. It's all about those nudges.
Interesting. So it's less about forcing change and more about like subtly guiding people towards better choices.
Exactly. It's more about understanding and working with human nature. And this applies to so many other challenges, too. Think about public health campaigns, trying to get people to stop smoking, get vaccinated, eat healthier. It's all connected.
Or even things like, workplace safety.
Oh, absolutely. If you can understand what leads to risky behaviors, you can design a safer environment, reduce accidents.
It's really incredible to think about how much of an impact this field can have on our lives in so many different ways.
It's pretty powerful stuff. And here's another thing to consider. The stuff we learn from behavioral science, it doesn't just help us fix problems, it helps us create better experiences too.
Now, that is fascinating. Tell me more about that.
Think about how things are designed. Products, services, even entire cities. If we understand how people think, how they feel, how they act, we can create things that are more intuitive.
More user-friendly, basically.
Exactly. More engaging, more human-centered overall.
So it's not just about fixing what's broken. It's about making things better, more enjoyable, more in tune with how we operate as humans.
Precisely. In behavioral science, it can help us design educational experiences that actually grab people's attention, marketing campaigns that really resonate, even online dating platforms that actually, help people connect.
That's a lot of pressure on those dating apps.
Yeah.
But I get what you mean. It's like we're taking the guesswork out of human interaction. We're using data and insights to create more fulfilling experiences.
And honestly, that's what I find so exciting about this field. It's not just studying human behavior in some abstract way. It's about using that knowledge to make the world a better place, a more functional place, a more delightful place even.
I love that. So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired, who's thinking, this is me, this is what I want to do, what would be your advice? Where do they start?
More than anything, I'd say be curious. This is a field for people who ask questions, for people who really want to understand the why behind the what of human behavior. And don't be afraid to explore. Read everything you can get your hands on. Books, articles, listen to podcasts like this one, connect with people in the field, learn from their experiences.
Because there's no single right path, is there?
That's the beauty of it. Behavioral science, it pulls from so many different areas, so there's room for everyone, no matter what your interests are, what your skills are. And honestly, never underestimate the power of just observing the world around you.
Bringing it back to those people watching skills we were talking about.
Exactly. Pay attention to how people interact, the choices they make, what motivates them. You'd be surprised what you can learn just from everyday life.
It's like we're all amateur behavioral scientists in a way, whether we realize it or not.
I love that. I think you're absolutely right.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of behavioral science.
It's been so much fun exploring this with you.
The pleasure was all mine. And for our listeners, we'll be sure to include links to all those resources we mentioned in the show notes, including that awesome career guide from RoleCatcher. Really great info for anyone who's serious about a career in this field.
You got it. And hey, whether you're just starting out or looking for a change, A deep dive into behavioral science could be just the thing you need.
Well said. This is the deep dive. Signing off until next time.